Hi, it's Dwyer, dwyervip.com. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Also, if you're into fantasy sports, right, baseball, football, etc., to save money, get a discount for new accounts at fanduel.com, the promo code is Dwyer777. Now, from time to time, I talk with people, and they're shocked to learn that what they thought was the truth isn't the truth. We're in a new day and age, technologically, where we could actually, from the privacy of our own homes, do internet searches, find out whether what we've been told was true, whether our understanding of the world is what it is. Now, I've gotten a lot of feedback on a video I made earlier, and I've heard the recent reports about, an alleged failed test. But I made a video on depression in boxing. Folks, it's much more widespread than I even let on in that video. And many people responded, right? They didn't know that some famous people had faced mental health concerns, right? They weren't aware that there have been people with belts in the sport of boxing, champions, or at least one champion, right, mentioned in that video. I'm telling you, there's several today who suffer from depression. But they didn't know that Frank Bruno had openly discussed his depression. Well, let's go further, because the past has been so heavily censored that many people are under the misperception that Orlando Cruz is the first gay boxer in history. Orlando Cruz himself, on BoxingScene.com today, in an excellent piece, right, says he wants to be the first gay champion in boxing. Right? Now, I hope people are aware. I hope this generation is aware that there's a boxing Hall of Famer who pretty much admitted that he was, at a minimum, bisexual. Right? Insiders know that there wasn't a lot of bi there. He was really a gay man who was a dominant champion, who was one of the biggest figures in the sport in the 1960s. In fact, one of the biggest moments in the sport actually involved his sexuality, right? And that individual is Emile Griffith. Let's be boxing historians here. Now, I've gotten unenlightened comments in the comment section to my videos, whatever. I'm sure people have a lot of, opinions on sexuality. Okay, great. Whatever. I'm not here to censor, because I believe the past has been too censored. But just understand that Emile Griffith is a boxing Hall of Famer. He's one of the best in boxing history. Now, in the early 60s, he was going to fight a guy, Benny Parrott. Right? Now, Benny Parrott is an interesting person, right? Because, as the boxing old guard knows, he fought Gene Fullmer, another Hall of Famer, right before he fought Emile Griffith. And the argument is that Fullmer beat him up so badly that he was an accident waiting to happen. So then, here he is about to fight Emile Griffith. And I think we all need to know the story here. Right? I encourage people to look this up on Wikipedia. Emile Griffith shows up for the weigh-in. He's casual. He's, ready to fight. He's just wants to be judged on his boxing. And Benny the Kid Parrott throws a slur at him related to Griffith's rumored sexuality. Right? Benny, according to some reports, even deliberately brushes against Griffith. Right? So it's not just the slur, it's the physical contact. Griffin was outraged. You could imagine the anger. So the fight took place. Now, Griffin wasn't even known for a big punch. Right? He wasn't a big puncher. That night he was. Understand, a lot of guys don't sit down on punches for strategic reasons. But then there are those fights where a fighter has a point to prove. Right? Then there are those fights where a fighter decides he's going to make a statement. Well, Griffin sat down on his punches. It's a famous moment in boxing history because the end of the fight features Griffin unloading on Parrott. Parrott, of course, is defenseless. The referee, who was an excellent ref, was a little slow getting over there, perhaps in part because Griffin didn't have the reputation of being a big puncher. Well, Benny the Kid Parrott died after the fight, coupled with, let me name another name from the past, the Davey Moore fight. Believe it or not, the networks decided that boxing was too violent. So they took the sport, which was incredibly popular at the time on television. They took the sport off of TV for years, right? 4 years. It wasn't until the 1970s that boxing really returned to television with a vengeance, right? And that's why some of the guys from the 70s, Ali, Frazier, Foreman, right, really became household names. It's because the earlier generation, mid to late 60s, was denied the sport because in a televised fight, Benny the Kid Parrott suffered injuries that he did not recover from. He died a few days after the Emile Griffith fight. So, from a 2016 perspective, right, let me just say this. Boxing, when I was a kid, and I heard about this story, it was hushed, right? Boxing was that censored. People didn't want to even consider Emile Griffith to be a gay man. This is while, of course, Griffin was openly going to gay bars in Manhattan, right? They didn't want to consider Griffin to be a gay man because he was too good a fighter. How good a fighter was he? Right? More than 10 years after the Benny Parrott fight. Understand, Emile Griffith was in the ring with a great champion, one of the dominant champions of recent memory, the great Carlos Monzon. And while Griffith was outgunned, he held his own. He went the distance, 15 rounds, with Carlos Monzon. It's the rematch, right? He wasn't so lucky the first time he faced Monzon, but he goes 15 rounds as an older man with a great champion who had one of the biggest punches in history. Look at the number of knockouts Carlos Monzon had. So, to this generation, be skeptical when older people, and that includes me, talk about the past, right? The past has been whitewashed, folks. You would think Orlando Cruz is the first gay boxer, right? When you have a Hall of Famer who's gay, and when you had a public incident take place more than half a century ago, right, that actually revolved around a gay slur that preceded a fight that ended up being fatal, that had a major impact on the sport for several years, right? If you're at the barbershop or if you're at home at a family reunion and Uncle Leroy or, whatever, Uncle Martin or Uncle Joe, who's in his 70s or 80s, who is still a sports fan, right, is at the family barbecue or whatever, right? Maybe it's Auntie Agnes, right? But someone who was a sports fan in the early 60s, I guarantee you they'll remember the incident. It's here online. What I want you to do is to look up, Google, Emile Griffith, Benny Parrott, right? They'll lay out the incident in all of its glory. Got news for you. Emile Griffith in the Hall of Fame. He's not the only gay champion in boxing history, right? These things are kind of things you have to research, right? But I need to have the current generation understand fully that history has been whitewashed. Before you believe the hype, do your own research. Technology has now given all of us the tools to do just that, from our laptops, right, our cell phones, etc. Let me hear from you. I know I'm going to get some comments I consider enlightened. I know I'm going to get some comments I consider unenlightened. Let's have the discussion. Let's not engage in whitewashing reality, right? I hope you leave your comments in the comment section to this video. Again, early 60s, Emile Griffith, Benny Parrott. Look at Emile Griffith's career. Look at the impact that fight had on television for the sport of boxing in the 1960s. Let me also point out too, for many old-timers, right, people who followed boxing in the 1960s, hey, that's even before my time, right? But for many old-timers, that's why the internet is such a treasure trove, right? Because they're able to really, for the first or second time, because keep in mind, when we're talking the 60s, film clips are hard to come by, right? The idea of a VCR didn't emerge for at least 15 years after that, right? That's early 80s, right? Understand too that boxing films in general were so heavily censored that in the United States it was illegal at one point to transport tapes involving Jack Johnson or interracial fights in general across state lines. So this is really the first era we've had where boxing fans can literally say, hey, let me look at Sonny Liston against so-and-so in the 1960s, right? Let me see the footage of countless fights in the 1960s that weren't shown on live TV, that weren't shown outside of closed circuit, right? Let's take advantage of the technology. I encourage everyone to look into Emile Griffith's Hall of Fame career. You'll be surprised. Let's just say Orlando Cruz, right? And I support Orlando Cruz 100%. But understand, he's gonna have to up his game considerably to even be mentioned in the same paragraph as Emile Griffith, one of the sport's greats, who was also, at a minimum, a bisexual man. That's how I see it. Let me hear from you. I hope you leave your comments in the comment section to this video. Thanks for stopping by.